Welcome to Faith, Love, and Therapy, a podcast to encourage and inspire. I'm your host, Jamie Johnson, a clinical therapist working in the field of mental health for the last 10 plus years. I believe this podcast is God-inspired and will be God-led. I thank you for joining me as we peel back the layers of mental health from a faith perspective. I'm hoping that you will have the opportunity to link with me on social media. I'm on IG at Faith, Love, and Therapy Podcast, and on Facebook, Faith, Love, and Therapy Podcast. You can also send me an email if you have questions or if you have comments, things that you would like to see or hear, on the podcast at faithlovetherapy@gmail.com. And I'm excited and look forward to hearing from you all very soon. So it's been a little bit of time. It's been summer. So we are back, and I am talking a bit this month about relationships. And I've shared in the past, we've talked about family of origin, we've talked about codependent relationships. And so I just want to continue to go a little deeper because I think that there's a lot that can be learned and a lot of growth that needs to occur when we talk about relationships. And so I recently was sharing about a plant in my office. I had written about this and actually shared with some loved ones about this one plant that's in my office. And the plant, if y'all know me, I love plants. I love to be able to, garden, things like that. And so every day that there's this plant that's in my office that is, slowly dying and, crumbling up and falling apart. And it leaves me feeling very disappointed when I see it. And so, I look at it and I'm like, okay, I need to repot her. I don't know what plants I always say her, but I repot her and things will be fine. And, fresh soil, or, she needs some more water, that sort of thing, but she's still wilting. And so there's a big disappointment with her. And so what I kind of did was just put her in the corner. And, not so that she wasn't in my line of vision, and kind of carried on with my day. So if you know me, I started gardening or having some type of garden, whether it was flowers or, food, from a teenager. And I had a small plot in the backyard of my parents' yard. And I grew, I think when I started, I had like carrots and corn and peas. And while some things grew, some things did not grow. But I still felt a lot of joy out of the success of seeing these things grow. And over the years, as I've grown, I also see I enjoy the kind of plant seed harvest illustrations and metaphors and that the Word of God uses. And so I've connected with that very young. But so I like to see growth. Part of why I'm in mental health is because I like to see the growth of individuals that I work with. And so to see this plant wilting in the corner, and many people come in and say, oh, I have a plant just like that. It grows so tall, it gets so big, and this plant is not growing. And so I kind of just turned my attention to other things and put her in the corner and stopped looking at her. But one day I was just staring at her wilted, and God kind of dropped something, conviction in my spirit, and that this is a pattern. This is a pattern for you. Cycle within my life. And even, a cycle in the lives of people that I know or that I counsel, where, and this one was prevalent in relationships, when someone or something is not responding to the investment that we've made, it kind of then makes us feel inadequate. And so we quickly, move that person or move the situation to the back burner. And so I've had to learn, I've had to kind of sit with that, where if I don't see growth, I feel disappointed and I feel overwhelmed. And so I don't want to deal with it. If I don't see things getting better, if I don't see things working, I do grow a bit frustrated and I put my energy elsewhere. And so I wanted to, after that moment of having the revelation of this is a pattern in behavior, not just in relationship, but a pattern in behavior, I went a little deeper. And so I had beginning the process of exploring relationships and my own relationships. And so for those of you that listen, you know that I am divorced. I've been divorced for almost, I think, 4 or 5 years, 2018. So whatever y'all do the math. And so time is going by, and I really want to be able to heal and be able to have good relationships. And part of that is being honest about how I engage in relationships of all kinds, not talking about romantic relationships solely. I'm talking about just in general, how I engage with others. And so in part of like our healing, I think it's important that we process why we do what we do. We always talk about that on this show. Why we do what we do. What is the thought behind the behavior? What is the root? So that we can begin, journaling about it and digging some things up and really changing behavior. That's the goal. And so while I have been doing that, I explore my own pattern within relationships, friendships, all of the relationships. So we know that there's about 4 types of relationships: family, friends, acquaintances, and romantic. So I'm thinking about all 4 and how I may engage at times in these relationships. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So one of the things that I realized about myself in the process, and I hope you all go on this journey with me and really start digging up some things in your own cycle of behavior, is I've always struggled with anxiety. And I think I've shared that a couple of times on the show. And depression, very much when I was a teenager. Depression has not really been an issue for me as a adult or young adult. That has been, thank God, has not been something that I've struggled with as much now. Anxiety, however, is something that I have been working through over the years. As I'm getting older, I continue to work through anxiety. It was much more prevalent when I was younger, but I didn't have a name for it. I just thought, I didn't like to be the center of attention. I avoided conflict. I avoided crowds. I avoided a lot of social engagement. And so I just chalked it up to my personality. Like, I was quiet, and that's what everyone said, in regards to my family. So that was the label I gave it. I didn't acknowledge that. Wasn't that I was just not engaging in those things, but I was fearful of those things. Like, I did not feel comfortable. I was very uneasy. And so being able to just say I'm shy and quiet and kind of remove myself gave some relief. But what I realized is that primarily was a social anxiety. And so my social anxiety was rooted in the fear of rejection. So, I've shared my story before that there's been a lot of rejection over the course of my life. And so the fear of rejection kind of fed that social anxiety. And then part of that, some other things developed as I'm exploring the roots in my, that I've noticed. One was, kind of difficulty with intimacy or closeness. And so that's affected people around me, because there are times where I can be very connected and hang out and spend time. But as things start to feel, I always label it as overwhelming. Things start to feel overwhelming. People are, wanting to talk more, wanting to be around me more, wanting to, hang out more. They're always, they'll call a lot, or when I do talk to them, they share a lot. They want to talk for a while. And so that became too much for me, and realizing that, I would create distance when I felt overwhelmed versus having conversations about that. And so, and that came from, having poor boundaries, which we've talked about on the show, how incredibly important boundaries are in every relationship. So, the poor boundaries allowed people to, pour in, but me not saying, okay, I've had enough, or I'm tired, or like, I really can't be the therapist today. All of those sorts of things that now at, the ripe age of 40, I am really, really working to do more often and develop more consistency with that. And I'm not all the way there. I'll be honest. I'm not all the way there, but I do desire to be all the way there. So I realized these things, and I realized that all of these things affect my ability to be in relationship with other people. And I have struggled with relationships at times because of these roots, right? Because of these roots that create this cycle. And the cycle is, I really want to connect with people. I do have a desire to be social at times and a desire to be in relationship. But then when I enter a relationship, I enter in a way that I am ready to give advice. I'm the helper. I'm the therapist, the counselor, the advisor. I'm the, one you can tell your deepest, darkest secrets to, and I'm going to share and support and give you advice and all those things. But what people don't notice is I don't tend to, or maybe some do now, but I don't tend to share as much in the beginning with the people that I meet. Or I share in spurts, but I spend more of my time listening than I do talking. And so I'm a therapist by vocation. Really, it's ministry, but so I listen all day long. And then some of my friendships or some of my connections with other people then become a moment where I feel like, okay, I am now a therapist again in their lives. And what happens is because I become overwhelmed. And so there's a pattern where I enter the relationship as that person. And then I realize, oh my gosh, I've done it again. And then I withdraw. And then I'm trying to reestablish how to engage this relationship again, but from just my authentic self, not necessarily showing up as a therapist. And it has been difficult for me. And so this pattern that God is allowing me to see is important because it causes so many things to kind of be impacted, and it creates dynamic where people think they've done something wrong, or that I'm upset with them, or even that something's wrong with me and I'm not sharing it with them, when really I haven't been clear about the fact that I don't want the relationship to take that pattern, but it's such a habit that I flow in that way. But being able to really assess the patterns that we're in, the behaviors, the root issues is important, because we can't have healthy relationships without that. And so this is the first episode of a couple of discussions I want to have about relationship, but I want to introduce this and kind of start with myself, because I always, as you know, I always think it's important to be able to share in a way. And even on this show, the way that I'm able to share is because I'm not directly speaking to someone and someone's not, talking to me about something. But also there's been some healing in that area, and I'm definitely getting much, much better. But I wanted you to think about the fact that there are patterns in how we engage. There are cycles within our life that are not necessarily healthy. God does not desire for us to be in cycles, which I've talked about before. But one of the things when we talk about intimacy, looking at how comfortable you are with intimacy, looking at what might affect your ability to be connected to other people, or what may affect your fear of being connected to other people. Is there something that is rooted there that you haven't necessarily dealt with yet that would be important to process and work through? As I acknowledge, like, social anxiety is something that I've had when I was young. And so recovering from social anxiety takes a significant amount of time, because there's a lot of rewiring that has to happen. But one of the things in regards to like fear of intimacy that develops is that, as I said, that root of rejection intensifies it. It makes me and others fear getting close, of course, because there is the possibility of that person rejecting us or walking away, walking out on us, not feeling that we're good enough, all of those things. And one of the things that I want people to realize is fear of intimacy is often occurs with those who struggle with anxiety. And anxiety is now creeping up as one of the number one mental health disorders diagnoses in the United States. Depression and anxiety are generally right there. For a while, depression was kind of at the top. Anxiety is really beginning to take hold of that. And so you'll find that there are many people who are struggling to have healthy relationships who have anxiety, that may not necessarily be something that you'll notice when you talk to them. You don't typically notice someone has anxiety unless they have kind of a panic disorder, or they have a severe generalized anxiety that causes them to shake and that sort of thing. Many people have an anxiety that causes our thoughts to really be on high alert, overthinking all of the internal things, but we can wear a smile, or we can, still hold a conversation, but there's a lot going on while we're doing that. So with anxiety, becoming one of the biggest mental health issues in the United States, some of these other things or subcategories are going to be attached to them. So fear of intimacy. And when you think about how relationships are going now, divorce rates are high. I'm in the number. When you look at the dating scene right now and the difficulty with just kind of coming together, a man and a woman, a relationship to just come together and be healthy or have a healthy communication, there are a lot of barriers in 2022 to developing healthy relationships. For those of us that are out here that, will date, we often joke that it is the ghetto because it's a lot going on out there with a lot of people who are dealing with or who are having these responses to connecting with people, and they may or may not know the root cause. They may not have gone to therapy and realized, okay, I have anxiety, or, I have a fear of rejection, or I have, whatever the case may be. They may not know that, but they're operating from a space. Their body is responding to the feeling and the thoughts that they have. And so oftentimes when there's a social phobia or a social anxiety disorder, experts will classify the fear of intimacy as a subset of those conditions. So, people who are afraid of judgment, who are afraid of, being evaluated or rejected, are naturally more likely to shy away from making intimate personal connections. And so, there's also specific phobias where people fear touch, literally. So there are a lot of things that can make relationships difficult. And so my encouragement today is that first we begin to unpack the cycle in our life. Allow God to bring revelation to who you are and how you operate. And once you see a pattern, write out that pattern. This is how I operate when I meet friends, when I meet a new guy or meet a new girl that I'm considering dating. When I, see someone of authority, when I talk to my leadership, when I talk to my employer, when I talk to a stranger off the street, what is my pattern? How do I respond? How do I feel inside? What am I thinking? And then when you notice some things that are like, okay, I may need to make some adjustment, then really start to look at, okay, what is the root? Why do I respond in this way? What is this cycle particularly about? What am I trying to avoid? What am I, fearful of? What have I experienced that may be, causing me to anticipate or assume some things about someone? When you go through the divorce, I think there should be a process of healing, because you have to, in a way, release some of those things that you've experienced, that you've said, that have been said to you, so that you're not carrying that into other situations or other relationships. So really start to look at that process. Once you start to see your cycle, your pattern of behavior, and then you recognize, okay, there are some roots here that I need to let go of. There is a fear of rejection. There is, this idea that I'm probably not enough, but I'm trying to operate in a way that no one can tell that I don't think that I'm, enough. Those things will always manifest in a relationship. Relationships will always bring those things out of us, no matter the type of relationship. And we have to be willing to take personal accountability and accept that those things are within us. And then we can start to move towards the process of, okay, let me make some changes. Let me start to unpack this. Let me start to find out where the distorted thought is. What is the distorted thought or the cognitive distortion? And once I know what the cognitive distortion is, then I need to find something. As Christians, we find the word of God, but we also have positive affirmations. We also have, loving statements from our family and friends. We find things to counteract those particular thoughts. And then we have to go to work. We have to go to work consistently to challenge those thoughts, to knock down those thoughts, to tear down or dismantle that type of thinking. Because if we don't, we're going to continue to get in relationship and operate the same way with new people. And I think that leads us to constantly saying, I'm always meeting the same person, or I'm always having the same outcome. Nothing ever changes, or people are all the same. We're in the same cycle. yes, we're running into people and having the same experience, but until we dismantle some of the things that are at play inside of us, until we dismantle negative thoughts, until we dismantle assumptions about ourselves, assumptions about other people, until we are willing to do the work to begin to break down the walls that keep us in a cycle that is not healthy, we're going to remain there. And so my encouragement this week is to take some time and to be transparent with yourself, to be honest with yourself. If you have someone in your life that will tell you the truth, hopefully you have at least one person that you can ask and say, what do you see that I consistently do that probably needs to change when it comes to the relationships in my life? Maybe the people closest to me. What do you see that I could do better on? Because we have to be willing to be vulnerable with these people that are closest to us, our parents, our spouses, our siblings, our best friends, those individuals, to be able to say, hey, I want to be better. I want to go to a different level spiritually and emotionally. And in order to do that, I need somebody to, kind of tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, this is what I see with love. And then really begin to take that to God and say, Lord, this is something that continues to happen. And I need you to help me to begin healing in this area, to receive healing in this area, deliverance in this area, whatever it is. We do take it to him. And then we walk that journey with him, which could include a number of things, but it does require us to be honest, to confront, and to make room so that he can transform us. So I'm hoping that this is helpful. I'm hoping that you take time to really look at your pattern. And we're going to talk more about relationships. I'm hoping to ask a few people to dialogue with me this month or probably into next month. But until then, listen to this. If you're not caught up on old episodes, please go back and listen to the ones that you've missed. And again, it's been a little while, but I'm so grateful to be back. And I look forward to seeing you all again. Remember that I'm healing and I'm taking some folks with me. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next episode.